If you're watching us live, put it in the chat where you're watching us from, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're watching us from, let us know. And if you're watching a recording, welcome to Noble Warrior. My name is CK Lin. Noble Warriors, where I interview leaders about their journey from being ego warriors to noble warriors and reclaiming deep joy and purpose and ability to make a difference in the world. So you can do the same. My next guest is a former Wharton MBA who took a leap of faith to pursue his passion in transformational experiences. These days, he traveled around the world, California, Costa Rica, Colorado, and Bali as a transformational artist, as a DJ, as a breathwork teacher, and also as an integration coach to create experiences that brings more joy for people. Welcome to Noble Warrior, Salman. Yeah, you there?
Thank you. Yeah.
Great, awesome.
Yeah.
So let's bring back to the place where you went from being a banker, working in finances, into that transition to this path of joy and purpose and healing. Can you bring us back to that place? And by the way, before you answer, the reason why I asked that question is this. We're at a time after COVID, and as they say, the great resignation period, right? A lot of people are making changes and thinking about what are their priorities are, and they're making different choices. And I think your story is going to illustrate what it takes to take that leap of faith from what's known to what's a little bit scary.
What's a little bit scary? What's a little bit risky? What's edgy? Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that prompt, CK. I've had many lives, as I'm sure many of you who are watching do. And I'll take you back to a life in which I was living in the mainstream, living a life of expectations that were set upon me by my parents, by other family members, by society at large, and by myself from the programming that I received. And I grew up, in an environment that was heavily education focused, which was great. I went to good schools growing up, graduated with a degree in finance, and ended up working in banking with high-powered positions in investment banking right out of university. I went to USC, Southern California, and ended up working in investment banking for 3 years, and 3 years at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. and Dubai. So high-powered finance positions, ended up going and getting a Wharton MBA after that. And so I saw my career path going up and transitioned into another exciting role, exciting field of technology and tech startups in the finance world as well, and worked for two companies in the payment sector. And throughout this time, I felt like my life was going in the right direction, but deep down, I felt unsatisfied. I had jobs that were fulfilling in many ways, but also unfulfilling in other ways. Felt strain on my time, and I was in a relationship at the time in San Francisco in 2017 that was also kind of just okay, just like my work, like fulfilling and satisfying in many ways, but there was a deep unsatisfaction within me.
So was there a moment though? I mean, or was it just a slow burn over time and finally you had enough and you say that yeah, that's it.
So
Was
there
there like a
was
specific moment?
two things. I would say two moments that really led to my transformation and transition. The first was this unsettling feeling of the relationship and the job just kind of being middle of the road that led me to seek a different path, to seek something new. And that's when I sat with my first ayahuasca ceremony in 2017 in the Bay Area. And that propelled me in a different direction. I changed a lot of things in my life at the time, my diet, the people who I was hanging out with, my interests. And over time, that relationship that I had eroded, and I found myself with a completely new community and different desires. And then in 2018, the thing
Oh,
that
before you go.
sure,
Yeah, I like how you just broad stroke over that. I mean, that's a big experience, right? Ayahuasca. I mean, even for me, if I think about my life, ayahuasca for sure was a pivotal moment. So going to that, because you just said, hey, I, let go of some relationships and went into a new community. But what actually happened, in your vision, what insights came to you? Go into that.
absolutely. Thanks. So that first ceremony, that first plant medicine, intentional plant medicine experience was so transformational for me. I went into it searching for answers around my relationships with my then girlfriend and with my parents. And for those of you who have not sat with ayahuasca, it is a really powerful plant medicine psychedelic that opens up the gateway to the spirit world for anyone who chooses to work with it, who feels called to work with this medicine. And it allows one to connect with their ancestors and spirits and guides and get information and wisdom that isn't easily accessible in normal reality. And from what that one experience for me, I experienced a feeling and sense that love is the currency of the universe, and it's really the only thing that matters in our lives, and it's what drives us forward to create, to live in complete alignment and integrity with ourselves. And it's something that gets to be given and not expected to be received. And so my relationship shifted with my girlfriend at the time because I was struggling to feel like to love her, and I was just given this information to just give without expectation, like unattached love. And so that was one thing, but other parts of myself changed and shifted. I found my love for myself. I discovered love for myself, and what that looked like for me, self-love, was to take care of myself better, to take care of what I put in my body better, to shift the way I ate, to stop eating processed meats and dairy and all sorts of other things that were not serving me and my body. So I became a vegan. I quit
Mm.
drinking alcohol completely. I quit drinking coffee. I was addicted to coffee at the time in the morning. So I shifted my relationship to myself and how I treated myself, and that shifted how I treated others as well. So that was a big, big transformation for me. That
Was
lasted.
it flip on a switch from drinking alcohol to no alcohol to meat to no meat to coffee to no coffee like that, or was a slow gradual process?
So before one works with ayahuasca, it is highly, highly recommended to do what's called a dieta, which is a preparational diet in which you remove certain aspects from your life, and that includes certain foods like red meat, alcohol, caffeine, spicy, sweet, salty foods. Um, and so for me, I honored that very well and decided to cut all these things prior to that journey, that ceremony. And I realized how good it was for me to feel that in my body. And I continued that going forward. And so
Mm,
it was pretty much a shift because of that.
mm,
And
mm,
then continuing on just felt right for me to do that. And in
mm.
that, the like the shifting of those habits and practices also created new habits and practices for me as a person that I continue to hold.
That's beautiful. So you never had any kind of relapse, any kind
Oh,
of
I mean,
fallbacks?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm no longer so like militant about not eating certain things. I'm no longer vegan. I was vegan for a year after that
Mm,
first experience. Um, Now I'm much more open and flexible about what I choose to consume. But it what it did was it invited a level of conscious awareness into my being
mm,
about what I was doing with myself, because I was doing a lot of things so unconsciously, and that had to do
mm,
with my life. I mean, it affected my my relationships and my work, and I was just doing
mm,
the thing. I was just like performing at my job and working for companies that I thought were going to be successful, and not really thinking through what is the intention behind this. I'm doing this
Mm,
to make the money, and to have the nice, the nice objects, because that's what I thought everyone was supposed to do. I didn't really internalize what is it that I want, and how does it make me feel, and what feeling do I want to embody at all times. So
mm,
it was a lot of unconscious, unconscious practices that suddenly I was able to turn a light on and become aware of that, and I got to change.
yeah, beautiful. So for those who, let me ask this question, I'll contextualize a little bit. So I went on similar journeys as well,
Mhm.
and it was life changing for me as well. I can get into the specific details if you're curious, but uh, similar lessons. That this is for me anyway. It's not a silver bullet. If I
Mhm.
drink this brew, this tea, this medicine, like life would just magically turn out. And if anything, it was a temporary clarity of or awareness of what's working in my life and what isn't working in my life. And then
Mhm.
more specifically about the area of where I was blind about things that I was doing but unconscious of,
Mhm.
or not paying so much attention to. So this allows me to bring more awareness to going forth. What do I want to pay more attention to, surround myself with, consume more of, or and then what are some of the things I want to stay away from and do
Yeah.
less of, and then distance myself accordingly. So, um, so for those people who are curious, who's never taken the medicine, as you said, like, oh man, I don't want to just blow up my life, blow up my career, blow up my family, blow up my relationships, change what I eat, change, you know, how I consume alcohol or caffeine. Those
Mhm.
are things that I enjoy. I have some level of comfort there.
Mhm.
What would you say to those people who is like, yeah, but I'm really scared of blowing up my life?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my experience is by no means reflective of the broader population, and that's my own personal experience that I chose for myself and found that worked for me. So if anyone is interested in exploring, what ayahuasca or any other kind of sacred plant medicine, intentional psychedelic use could do for them, the wholesale changes that are possible are not necessarily going to happen. And with that said, what I would say is that if there's any curiosity and any curiosity to explore deeper within oneself, like why things are the way they are for yourself, like why you're continuing to experience certain patterns, certain things of ways of living that might cause you some suffering, might cause you to question why is this happening to me, then that is a very good indicator, and invitation to perhaps consider, um, deeper down on a subconscious level what could be happening, why this all is happening for you. And so it certainly can be scary, and I think entering into these spaces, is it's very normal to feel a bit of apprehension and anxiety around it, because we don't know what we don't know, and there's a level of uncertainty and probably some trepidation there. But my belief is that the learning and the growth for anyone, any individual in their life journey, in their self-development journey, it happens in those spaces, that are scary. And
Mm,
and if you stay in the comfort zone, like how much really can you grow from that? You
mm,
know, um, it's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll make an analogy with like working out, exercising. If you're just lifting 5-pound weights, you're comfortable doing that. You're not really going to grow your muscles. If you get to a place where you're really exhausting yourself and you're breaking down muscle tissue and it's hard, that's when you actually see the gains, right? See
mm,
results. And it's the same thing when it comes to your own life, your own ways of thinking, your mind, and your self-development. It's like in those edgy places is when you really see what you're made of and what insights will really be revealed to you.
I love it. You know, as you're speaking, the visuals comes to mind is think about a pie, right? As a circle. There's area of life that's full of light, that's fully illuminated. Those are areas that you know that you know. And there are
Yes.
areas of life that you know that you don't know, right? That's also illuminated. But there's a huge aspect of our life that's what we don't know that we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
what we call blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, drinking ayahuasca or having these type of conversations or having reflections, serious contemplation times allow us to explore and illuminate our blind spots. And it may be scary to think about, but at the same time, for me and you, we're the seekers, right? We want to grow in more intentional way. When we illuminate these blind spots, then we can see like, hey, look, oh, now I know why I'm not particularly excited about this area of my life, my relationships, my diet, my body, my business, my career, my finances, whatever the thing is. And
Yeah.
that does allow us more opportunities to drive our meat suit in a particular direction. That's the way I think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Hmm.
I fully agree with that. I fully agree with that.
Hmm.
I love that the reference you made of like what we don't know, we don't know.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of life is like that, and I think there's our 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 egos, our minds often want to be in control and really do what we know about, and that's just such a limited part of life and our own awareness and our own consciousness. It's just such a small sliver. There's so much of what we don't know that we don't know, and in these experiences, those parts do get illuminated, and and it's yeah, I mean, I can just say I can just kind of close with saying that like I've gotten so much from exploring the depths of the unknown, and I'm so grateful for all of that because I feel like I've grown so much as a person because of it.
Do you feel that how many times you sit in this plant medicine ceremonies correlates with how quickly you grow,
Mhm.
or that's just a proxy?
So I'd say I'd answer that in a couple ways,
Mm,
and um, actually, yeah, quite a number of ways. For me personally, a lot of my growth and development have come as a result of the work I do. My personal work with plant medicine, and the first part was what I just shared about my own personal growth. So that first ceremony led me to make changes in my life, led me to shift my surroundings, my habits, my practices, the people I surround myself with, what I do in my life, and opened me up to a range of experiences that I had not been um, focusing on before.
mm, mm,
Uh, More artistic experiences, creative experiences that I now am living and embodying.
mm.
Uh, and
What
it
are
led,
those, by the way?
sure, music,
Mm,
mainly music, and and art, design, designing products, jewelry,
mm,
that sort of thing, and creating experiences, and being and actually being in facilitation roles that in the past I shied away from. So there's a lot of expansion for me, and it wasn't a linear journey for me. Um,
it wasn't a goal setting process. In
abs-
5 years, I'll be a DJ and
no,
facilitator.
no, absolutely not. And that's a good segue to what I'd like to share, which is there's an element of trust and surrender when it comes to working and diving deep into these spaces, because this isn't the linear world that we're talking talking about. It's very much a nonlinear world, and maybe we can even go so far as to say the quantum. But it was a nonlinear path for me. It wasn't like, I'm going to do this because this is the next step in my evolution. It's not like climbing the corporate ladder where I'm, making manager and director and VP and whatnot, where that was what I came from. It was more from like, oh, I feel completely different in my body, and I'm going to go explore what feels joyful and fun for me, and that I feel like this desire to just explore because of the love of it. And so my ayahuasca journeys led me to going on more ceremonies, and finding myself working with an organization that was doing this for other people like me, people who are highly accomplished, high achievement oriented, type A business people. And that led me on this whole longer journey of discovering myself and my gifts and my creative talents. That's kind of led me to where I am now.
Okay, so let's pause on that for a moment, or double click on that.
Okay.
For the overachiever, younger version of Salman, right? The Wharton MBA, he's thinking like, man, I don't understand the language CK and Salman are speaking. The trust and surrender and listen to the body and joy. No idea what that means. How would you translate what you just said to the younger Salman, who is all about achievement, show me the most efficient, effective step to take, and I will take it no matter what the cost is?
Yeah. Sure. I'm sure the younger version of me, the younger Salman, would have a lot of skepticism and disbelief about what this version is saying. Definitely was looking at life as just this path of like climbing, instead going up, more and more steps. What I ended up doing, and I think I would love to just like name drop an amazing book that I read, which I think would probably resonate here, and it's called The Surrender Experiment. And it's a book written by a man named Michael Singer, who wrote another book, The
Untitled Soul.
Beautiful book. But The Surrender Experiment was a book that I was encouraged to read before a particular retreat that I did a few years ago, and it told about it was basically the biography of Michael Singer, who was this man who grew up in Florida, with a couple economics degrees, and found himself deep into, I believe it was Zen meditation, and decided to buy a piece of land because he found himself able to quiet his thinking mind, which many of us have, analytical, rational, very logical thinking mind, always trying to make sense of everything. And he decided that he didn't want to make sense of things so much anymore, and decided to devote his life to meditation and surrendering to whatever wanted to happen around him. And there's an element of just kind of allowing things to happen. There's also an element of not resisting. And I think the story for me is about not resisting and not trying to push forward to create something against all odds, because there's beauty in allowing and surrendering. And the long story short, he ended up having a series of beautiful things occurring in his life that led to him becoming the CEO of a publicly traded company. And that was not because he pushed and tried to create that experience. It was because that's what just wanted to happen through his own way of surrendering to the universe. And it may sound like some woo-woo magical spiritual speak, but I can attest and would say to my younger self that by following what I really truly wanted in my life, which I didn't give space to before because I thought that I had to push and achieve, I'm actually a much happier person because I'm doing the things in my life now that I love to do, where my work and my play, my free time, everything feels very much in alignment. I'm not creating this dissonance, this separation, this duality between my work and my play or my professional and my personal. It's all molded into one, because I've decided to surrender to all the things that I love, and by doing that and focusing on service, which is nothing I want to talk about, things have really come into more clarity and cohesion for myself.
I love that. Thanks for articulating it. And as someone who is on that path as well, I definitely relate.
Mhm.
So let's see, where do we go from here? I do still wanted to address a little bit to the younger Salman and CKs, because
Okay.
I sense the skeptical voice very strongly. I kind of hear it in my mind, right? This is, all sounds awesome,
Yeah.
but what about achievement, right? I don't want to. I don't want to not achieve anymore,
Mhm.
because achievement is important for me. But I don't want to just sit and meditate all day
Yeah.
and not waste the God-given talent and gifts and blessings that has been given to me. So what do you say to that voice?
Yeah, I would say to consider what achievement, like how do you define achievement? And is the like I'm not, like, I'm no stranger to, or I'm not saying to downplay or to discount that aspect of anyone in their life. I'm still very much achievement oriented. I want to be successful. I am successful already in my life in a number of ways, and my my approach now, as opposed to before, is to find the things in my life that that truly mean something to me, that truly give me purpose and meaning, from a from a completely aligned place. And so achievement to me now is still very much important, but whereas before there was an achievement of doing something that didn't feel right to me, and like that's why I mentioned the disconnect between the personal and the professional. um, and for me now, achievement is continuing to become successful and do the things that are that allow me to receive, you know, financial gifts and become better in myself. Um,
Mm,
but for things that I personally find much more fulfilling,
mm,
and maybe I can relate this to a story. The second kind of transformational experience that I had after ayahuasca was my experience at Burning Man in
mm,
2018, in which there was a clear sign. I was working a job. I was working as a director at a tech company during the day, and my nights and weekends were spent building an art project that I was going to take to Burning Man that year with my friends, and just knowing, just feeling in my body that I was kind of just not happy at work, and I was so lit up creating this project that wasn't going to make me any money, but still felt like once we created this, that was like the feeling of achievement that really lit up my soul, and it did. Once we completed it, brought it to Burning Man. It was a vegan ramen noodle bar that we served
oh,
people.
nice. That's
we,
great.
we
Oh,
served
that's awesome.
people all night long during the playa, during
Mm,
Burning Man. And it just lit up my soul, that led me to realize that that's what I wanted to do in my life. Um,
what's that?
and
What's that?
I would
When you
say
say
that
that's what I want to do in with my life, what's that?
to create,
Mm,
art, to facilitate experiences of connection, of wonder, of joy, um, of community. And that was an element, that was an experience that really led to like the furthering of my transformation in my journey. But I want to just kind of relate that back to achievement, because There's achievement in many areas of life, and for me, creating that, the culmination of that was an achievement in itself. And the juice, or the jewel of that, was the realization that if I didn't need the corporate achievement for myself. It helped. It was great. And I knew that if I put my heart into something that I really cared about and loved, that I can still achieve and I can still be successful. It's just in a different way. And I might recognize how I would receive benefit from that at a different time and in a different way.
Hmm. Yeah. One of my biggest ahas doing plant medicine ceremonies is comes down to this phrase: "What's it all for if not for joy?"
Hmm.
I have lived my life for many decades in the pursuit of achievement and at the cost of personal health, relationships, fun, friends,
Mm.
just everything I could to achieve. And then what ended up happening for me is, that the half-life of that satisfying moment, right? The enjoyment of achievement
Yeah.
went from days to hours to minutes to seconds to nanoseconds. It was so well hung, my ego would just say, "Okay, that's done. What's next?"
Mm.
Literally, I had no time to even enjoy what took me sometimes years of effort to achieve a thing. So that was a definitely a recipe for a miserable, a boring, dry life. And
Yeah.
yeah, so for me, I love what you said about now you're aligned, right, internally and externally.
Yeah.
I would say this to anyone listening, the younger CKs, the Salmons of the world, who's worried that this will lessen their drive, their ambition. Just take this on for size. Who you are is someone who loves mastery, who loves to achieve things. So, what we're talking about is mostly internal alignment. It won't take away the horsepower that you already have. That's who you are. So, I don't think you need to concern that you're going to become less ambitious or less achievement oriented, but rather your focus, this drive, this horsepower that you have to something that makes you come alive. That's what I'll say to the younger CK.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah, it is. It's no. It's there's not a sense of losing ambition or motivation. It's just directed in a different way, in a
Mm,
way that leads to a more fulfilling, satisfying, joyful life. And
mm.
that's what I've personally experienced. So
So
yeah,
speaking of joy, I'm curious.
yeah,
There's a lot of different directions like we can go into about transformational modalities, but I'm curious, right? Let's say the younger CK listening to this says, "Oh, that sounds interesting, right? I now live a miserable life without any joy whatsoever.
yeah.
How do I bring more joy back in my life? What are some step-by-step tactical way to do that?"
Great question. Um, Everyone likes something. Everyone finds joy in something, and there are different ways. There are different things everyone finds joy in. For me, there was, I love music. I love art. I love experiences. I love, festival culture. I love those places and spaces that bring people together for the spirit of joy. And so it was pretty easy for me to be able to find myself in those spaces. For everyone, it's different, and I think finding an outlet for your joy and taking further steps into that outlet is important to find out how you can be most contributive to fulfilling your own journey of joy. And I would say I would say whatever that is for anyone, um, for you listeners, whether it's in art or music or whatever it may be, cooking, um, step into it. And I mentioned this earlier, but I'd like to reflect back on it, which is service. Be Step into, even if it's a small step, step into a level of service where you're not just consuming and participating in whatever it is that you love to do, but find ways to support and give back
Mm-hmm.
and offer to others the things
Mm-hmm.
that you love. Um, and I think that will create more opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
uh, possibilities for you to discover how that joy gets to be further manifested for you in your life. An example for me is, I I mentioned with this plant medicine work, I found
Mm-hmm.
so much healing in it and transformation in myself
Mm-hmm.
that it changed my life in many different ways. And I found myself at a retreat where I was just again blown away. My life changed so much. I experienced and received so many beautiful experiences that I offered myself to come back and support and help them with different things, with marketing, with outreach, with on the ground help, and just like led with an open heart of service. And I think that led me to find more opportunities to really, to feel more joy because of the work I'm doing is now part of the things that I loved to experience, and just opened up a lot of doors for me. And I've done that with many different things, with music, with art, um, and so service, leading with service, and finding ways to just say, "Hey, I want to help. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I love this, and I want to help. And how can I help to whoever it is you're connecting with?" So that's what I would say.
I want to double click on that because a lot of times people ask me, how did you become, for example, the head of culture or the chief culture officer for the startup? How did you become a coach, or how did you become a podcaster? How did you get so and so on your podcast? It's very much in the spirit of what you just said, in the spirit of service. I like this thing. I'm gonna see what I can do to help. It could be in
Mhm.
the form of being a guardian, right? It can be in the form of being an evangelist by bringing people to it. It could be in the form of operational help, as you said, right? The marketing and the other operational help, which you have some superpowers with, right?
Mhm.
So those are all points of leaning into the unknown and just see how can I add value to this entity, this organization, or this ecosystem.
Exactly.
Ultimately, in my mind, that's what life is all about. It's not transactional per se, but it's the flow of karma. So if we
Mhm.
can add more value any way possible, if you become that person, just adds value everywhere you go. I deeply believe that what goes around comes around. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really beautiful way of putting it. Adding value, service. Two ways of saying. Just another way of saying it is, for me, like leaving something better than I found it.
mm,
Um,
mm,
you know, uh, Experiencing something that gave me some beautiful reflection or joy or experience, and
mm,
giving back. So this is how life goes. We receive and we give, we give in and
mm,
receive. Um, and there is this reciprocity, and it's
mm.
important to just know like how best to give back in every situation. And
Yeah.
oftentimes I find the most joy, not in just like doing things, but in giving, in offering, in helping, in supporting. And that's why that's that's where I find the most happiness.
So I have a question specifically around making a transition from someone who is a consumer, as you said earlier, to someone
Mhm.
who's a contributor to someone who's a professional contributor, right? Because there's amateur, volunteer contributor and then professional contributor. I'm curious to know, as you add more value, you need to also take a leap of faith from someone who is an amateur to someone who said, all right, I now do this on the professional way. I can give you a high standard of delivery or experience.
Yeah.
What went from I'm just gonna play music very quietly, right, to myself and to others, to now play music, right, with your full heart, full expression, to now charging people to hear your music. Can you share a little bit about that transition?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we'll use the example of DJing. As I now consider myself a professional DJ.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, I hadn't, and I loved music for years. I've been going to clubs, I've been going to festivals. I love ecstatic dance, and so I've been. And at the time in Bali, I was living in Bali in 2020 during the pandemic, and I was exposed to a lot of great dance events and DJs. We were still dancing at the time throughout the entire thing. And I decided that I received so much. I wanted to get back. I want to learn. I want to just play. And so I got myself a couple of controllers and practiced. And one day, my friend was looking for a DJ for a house party, and I said, "Oh, I can do it. I'll try."
Mm-hmm.
That was me being the, the kind of like the shy, like, "Oh, I'm not sure about this. I'm gonna give it a try." And it ended up being, I put some energy into it and practice, and trying to be a good showing. And from then on, it kind of, it didn't balloon, but it was a gradual, like, "Oh, cool, like I did that pretty well. I'm gonna put myself out there and take a risk and just offer myself in service, and not expecting much afterwards, but just again in service because I loved doing it." And little by little, the opportunities kept coming, um, and I think I guess the practical application of like how I did it was to find something that I loved, and to offer myself in the spirit of that. So for me, it was offering music, DJing, dancing, um, and to not just surrender. So as I mentioned before, like a big part of this is in the like this surrender portion of just letting things happen, but also taking inspired action to
Mm-hmm.
create opportunities for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that involved me putting myself out there. So there were risks taken for me. Like there was reputational risk. What if I sucked? You know, what if I, definitely felt imposter syndrome a lot of times. I'm like, who am I? I'm this finance guy.
How did
And
you overcome that? Actually, speaking on that, how did
yeah,
you overcome that?
how did I overcome that?
Mm.
Well, there was definitely still that feeling for me a lot of times, but I took the steps to prepare myself, and I think this is where the all the things I learned in my life to just be a resourceful person came in handy. Not just you know not just going out there without any plan of action, but being strategic about it, practicing, knowing exactly what I was going to do. And maybe I wasn't, technically as skilled as I am now or other people are, but just going out there and like reducing the possibilities for me to screw up. And I think it's there's yeah, so there's there was that structured part of my way of being and thinking that allowed me to become successful in what I did. And
Mm.
it's I'm around the spiritual world a lot, and there's in the spiritual world, anybody in a particular body, whether it be a male body or a female body, has both masculine and feminine within them.
Mm.
We're both masculine and feminine. We're the union of the two, but we just have different physical features externally. And for me, it was a beautiful interplay of the masculine and feminine, where there was, the 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 allowing of just kind of like seeking the beauty, the art, the creative element of me stepping out of the corporate world into something that was completely new. The music aspect, but also being very very left brained and masculine and structured about it, and preparing and like being practiced in order to direct myself in a direction that would lead to my success.
So actually, okay, so we do use that masculine feminine energy on Noble Warrior quite a lot because we
Great.
use the yin yang sign to illustrate certain points, the polarity of our life a lot, right?
Yeah.
So inside of that, did you follow a certain number of hours of practice per day, a certain time that you practice? How did you maximize or optimize the way you learn this new craft?
um, I'd say that part was a little more feminine for me, because I didn't have like, I didn't structure my time of the day of like, oh, 4 hours a day, every week or anything. It was more along the lines of when I knew I had something like a gig set up for me at some point, I'm gonna be putting the hours in beforehand.
Mm, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Got it. It's really cool. So every time I was speaking to a legendary drummer the other day, his name is Kenny Aronoff,
Hmm.
and he play with just, he has like, I think like platinum records all over the place, his Zoom background and just a legendary guy. We're talking about his practicing rituals and how he prepare himself to go
Mm.
into gigs and but that's a whole other conversation. I'll have that conversation with Kenny's on the podcast
Yeah.
next time for sure. He's a
I will say a little bit of an insight into my process, and just so like maybe the listeners know, 2 years ago I hadn't done any of this before, and I got into it, and I opened myself up to playing. And for example, now I didn't consider myself a musician before, and or an artist at all. I was just straight finance, banker, tech guy for multiple years, and now I consider myself an artist, a musician, a creative, a coach, an entrepreneur. All of these things that were labels that I never associated myself with, and it was because of stepping in and surrendering to the things that I loved and opening myself to that, and also putting practice in. And so, for me as a DJ now, um, I I was on tour this last week up and down California. I'm playing ecstatic dances, and I've played like the biggest festival in Bali in May, and I'll be playing at Burning Man. I'll be playing a festival in Colorado afterwards. Now I'm a festival DJ, which is something I never thought I'd be, but it's beautiful that I surrendered to what the universe like has given to me, has opened the doors for me to do. And part of the insight of my process as I was growing in that journey was to be very specific about how I would craft every set that I did, and having like very detailed notes about it. Because now I'm much more seasoned and experienced, and I can just flow and DJ on the fly. Before, I had to like make very detailed line by line. This is what I'm gonna do. This is the next track. When is it gonna be? Move to this track, etc. So I started off with like this very masculine, structured way of doing it, in order to prepare myself for my success. And then once I got that practice in, and I was able to dial it in and know, and kind of like I embody the way I would craft any kind of musical journey, then it's become more innate in me, and now I'm able to flow and use my feminine more,
mm.
and just like weave things in through intuition.
So speaking of intuition, I know you did intuitive body work. You want to talk about how you hone your calibration to your own intuition a bit,
Mm.
and why you think. Let me actually contextualize this a little bit. The masculine approach to decision making is give me all the data there is possible. Let me
That's
look at the trend line. Let me look at best practices. And based on data, then I'll make decisions accordingly. That's the very masculine way of decision making. On
yeah.
a higher level, so to speak, way to make decisions very intuitive, right? You connect the dots based on everything that you know beyond the data that you see, but everything that you know as a human. And I consider that to be, well, I want to do both. Not to say I just want to use my intuition alone. I want to look at all the data and then make a decision based on my intuition. So I actively cultivate my own intuitive thought process. And the huge part of it is medicine work. A huge part of it is I'm now learning music. I'm learning the djembe. I want to
Oh,
play.
yes.
Yeah, I want to be able to play djembe and sing ceremony songs during ceremony. Something
Amazing.
that I'm actively taking on. So everything that you said about your journey as a DJ, I
Mm-hmm.
resonate.
Mm.
I resonate, and certainly there is a leap of faith one needs to take, and often. So I'll share a story. This is a humbling story, but but I think is instructive for anyone who is maybe not about taking that leap of faith. So I've been learning djembe for the last 60 days, right? Every day, 15 plus minutes, however time. So I'm getting the rhythm. I'm getting this. So I play in ceremony a couple of weeks ago, and then the owner of the house came to me and said, "Hey, sit closer to the guitar." I'm like, "Why? I'm good where I'm at." He said, like, "No, you're off beat and you're playing really loud." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." The shame. But then I shared that with Kenny Aronoff, a legendary. He said, well, everyone needs to go through that. So congratulations for experiencing that. The important thing is to get back on the mat and continue to practice. So
Mm.
that's the way I bring myself back to, like, let me just continue to practice. So with all that said, what a yeah. My musical friend is commenting. So 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 intuition. What
Yeah.
are some of your way to cultivate this elevation of your intuition?
Hmm. I will say that all my work with plant medicine has helped a lot with that. And not only that, but sitting with myself, um, meditation alone, and being out in nature has helped a lot with that too. Um, Really tuning in with myself. And I mentioned plant medicine because in an ayahuasca ceremony, you are not interacting with anyone. You are kind of tuning into yourself and the visions and what the medicine wants to share with you. Um, and it's like your awareness, your conscious awareness is much more heightened, and that happens also with being in a meditative practice where there's no external, it's all internal. You're tuning in with yourself. And when I'm out in nature, I'm just tuning into myself as part of this grander universe. We are not different from nature or apart from nature. We are nature. We are part of nature. We are nature. And so in these spaces, as examples, um, I'm I'm shutting off my mind, my brain, my thinking brain, my logical, analytical left brain that has so much to say, and it's all noise. 99% of it is just noise, and it's just the ego wanting to just like be heard. And when I'm in that state, the what is it? I think the like the beta, when we talk about brain waves, there's the alpha, beta, gamma, delta, the beta waves, right? Like the very like just high frequency, just talking state. I'm not able to tune in myself, and my intuition gets pushed down. It,
Mm,
it gets silenced by all the clutter, the mental blah. And so I find myself able to tune into myself when I want to make some decisions, by giving myself the mental space and the clarity, and just like removing myself from places of distraction, getting away from my computer, getting away from my phone, getting away from conversations. Maybe I'll use that as all that as fodder, as kind of like the raw materials for myself to then take the space and process it on my own by myself and let my intuition guide me with my own internal wisdom.
What about the body? Can you say anything about intuition
Oh
and the body?
yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I that what I spoke about now is in reference to the mind and how to kind of get a clear mind. But the body says so much. The body says so much, and I want to. I think it's a good segue to talk about the work I do with breath work, because I perform and I lead breath work ceremonies called Somatic Breathwork. It's a self breath work that allows people to kind of allow um, their you know the the messages that are residing in the body to come out. And where I'll go with this is I will. So I'm going to go back to a story of maybe about 12 years ago, or 12 years ago, 10 years ago, perhaps. I was living in Dubai at the time, and this was pre MBA. I was actually applying to 2 different MBA. Like, I applied to 6 different MBA programs, and I got into 2 of them. I got to 3 of them, and I was choosing between two that I really wanted: Wharton and another school. And I had chosen the other school over Wharton, even though my body said that I wanted to be at Wharton. When I went to visit the campus, it felt great. When I went to visit the other school, it was okay, but the mind told me that I should go to that school because they offered me a half-ride scholarship. It was like, I'm going to save $60,000. It's a lot of money for me at the time at 28, even though I was going to get a big paying salary job afterwards. But I'm like, I'm going to do the right thing, like rankings wise, they're just like one off from each other. So I chose the other school. I put in the deposit application, everything. I said yes. And as soon as I did that, even though my body said I wanted to be at Wharton, living in Philadelphia, instead of this other cold place that, wasn't as great, all of a sudden, like, my body like shifted and felt like I felt sick that whole day. It was like everything just like didn't feel right. Like just this pain in my chest started to happen. And that was when I first realized how important intuition is. It was just like everything I knew was wrong, and I had to go back on my decision in order to make things feel right. It doesn't answer your question about how I tune into it. This is an example of like how I really understood that this is a real thing, and now how I tune into it is that is everything that I just shared. Just kind of like allowing myself to feel, and knowing that if my body feels like a yes to something, it's it's going to let me know. It's going to let me know. It just feels right. There's a lightness in my chest. There's like a lightness in my body. There isn't this tension. There's contraction. This heaviness. So that's a way of understanding and being able to decipher for yourself whether a decision that you're making is right or wrong based on your intuition. It just feels, you're going to feel light or you're going to feel contraction, expansion or contraction. It's one of the two.
One of the technique that I discover during ceremony actually is the mind, as you said, creates a lot of ideas. It just wants to be helpful, right? So it's constantly, am I helpful here, 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 even though, I don't need it to do anything other than just sit. So the mind produces a lot of ideas. And a simple trick is just put my hand on my heart and just feel like, hey, what does my body need right now? So for me, that's a way to amplify what does the body desire in that moment. Yeah. But I want to segue to lifestyle design. That's what brought us together very recently. I was watching, passively what you're doing. You're traveling around the world, living up your life. I really love how you are expressing your inner joy by the way you live your life, right?
Thank you.
So that looks very glamorous from a distance. How do
Mhm.
you practicalize going from 95 or solopreneur or entrepreneur to someone who lives their life from Bali or Colorado, California, different places? Can you walk us through the practical aspect? So maybe a concern about community. I don't know anyone in Bali yet,
Mhm.
right? I want to go there, but how do I practicalize it? I don't exactly know how to do remote work yet, right? In the US versus Bali. So these like practical ways to design the life of your joy. That would be really, really helpful for people who's thinking about taking a leap.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to be able to distill that for people to make it a little more practical. Um, and maybe for context, I'll share that I do bounce around from different places. I currently pay rent. I'd like to say, people ask me where do I live. I'm like, well, I pay rent in the San Francisco Bay Area. So that's where I am right now in my room. But I do travel often. I will be going to Costa Rica in a few days to run a retreat. Um, just as reference, I work for an organization and we run ayahuasca retreats, plant medicine retreats for leaders called One Heart Journeys. And I'm taken to Costa Rica about 5 times a year to do that work. Um, why Bali? I spent a lot of time there. I lived there over the pandemic, and I've built a big community there. And that's where I kind of started off my artistic abilities and my artistic talents with some of the work I do. I design objects and for jewelry, and I started DJing there. Colorado, I just have a lot of tribe there, a lot of community. But I find myself doing a lot of work and creating more community here in the Bay Area, more and more so now, where
Mm,
music and breath work and
mm,
and coaching, whether it's plant medicine integration, psychedelic integration coaching, or life coaching. Um, so this just about me and where what I would say in terms of how I've been able to integrate all of this together is that it hasn't been a linear process where I have this very intentional, this is what I want. But a lot of it has been in, again, following my joy, following my flow, and knowing that these are the things that I enjoy in my life and enjoy doing, whether it's music, whether it's beautiful objects, sacred objects, whether it's ceremonies and retreats, or whether it's breath work. And it's been kind of like like connect the dots kind of journey for me, where like this dot leads to this, to that, to that, to that. um, but I know that what I want in my life is I want to be able to be mobile. I want to be able to be able to do the work I love to do, which is in transformation. And so whether it's the ceremonies or the music or the dance or joy, beauty, it's all in the spirit of transformation, transformational art. And I choose intentionally the ways I support myself and do work that are in alignment with my guiding principles and my vision for my life. So that's in the work of transformation, being around great community, being able to move around and be in places that I love. Um, and so I've intentionally chosen for myself not to do work that keeps me in any particular place. I've
mm,
intentionally chosen to be around people who to do similar work and are in the same spaces. And by that kind of decision making process that I have, I've those are the things that I intentionally choose to do, and the rest have been through expressions of the ways I want to help people.
mm,
And from 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 those conversations, I've found the opportunities and the projects and the possibilities that have aligned with my desired way of living.
mm, mm. This reminds me of a quote. well, an idea I got from listening to the conversation between Joe Rogan and Sakuru.
Mm-hmm.
And a big nugget that I took away was, instead of pursuing happiness, which implies happiness is outside of you, make your life an expression of your joy.
Mm-hmm.
So you, my friend, are very clear about the criteria, the life that you want. You want to be around great people, transformational work. You want to be mobile, and as such, you didn't say this in the way you articulated. You are open to new possibilities to contribute to this ecosystem, and then you also surround yourself with great people. So wherever they are, that's kind of where you're drawn to. Am I projecting that too much, or that's part
Not at
of?
all. It's definitely. I feel like that's one of my superpowers. I surround myself with amazing people, and I'm a connector in that way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
connection is my superpower. Finding
Mm-hmm.
myself connected to others and forming connections with other people, and that's part of the spirit of service for me, in just like helping people just achieve whatever they desire, and
Mm-hmm.
opportunities then have flowed down to me. And I think that's part of the surrender that I spoke about earlier, of just being in service and surrendering to the benefits and the gifts that have come that are a result of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so yes, offering energy in the spirit of something joyful, something you love, something in service, um, often comes with the gifts. Like
Mm-hmm.
gifts allow you to receive gifts, and so for me,
Mm-hmm.
I've found exactly what I've wanted, and I work. I have a strong belief that intentions and manifestations are real.
Mm-hmm.
That what I would like to receive has most often come to me in various ways, maybe not in exactly the right way. And this is a lot of like quantum theory work, quantum
Okay.
physics
Well,
work that you from
since
Joe Dispenza.
sure, since you mentioned it, do you mind going to double click on that? What does that mean for
Yeah,
for people who may have heard about Joe Dispenza, but who's not really well versed in it? What is this quantum theory work that you talked about?
yeah. So quantum physics, quantum, the quantum, is that we live in a nonlinear world, and that there are multiple possibilities, there are multiple, like, infinite universes that exist, and that whatever you desire in your life is possible through the power of belief, because our thoughts are energy, our beliefs are energy, our words are energy, and we're all made of energy. The entire universe is made of energy. And so if you align yourself and your thoughts and your beliefs and your words with a particular um, energy, that energy will become attracted to you. It's law of attraction. Also, if anyone is familiar with that. And so when you align all of your own self with what you want, you will attract it. And so for me, and so for practically speaking, it's like, if you say, if you whatever you say in a particular way, will become you'll be attracted to it. If you keep saying that you're late all the time, to work, I keep showing up late, you'll keep showing up late. If you are able to rephrase yourself and say something like, I'm getting better at getting on time, then that is the energy you're expressing to the outside world, the universe, to yourself. And so you're going to attract that same energy, and you're going to start showing up on time. And so for me, I've been calling in, and saying to myself, and just being very in integrity with what I want, with things, with what I say, and with what I think, and with what I believe. And my experience, my personal experience, is that it has worked. um, when I believe that I'm going to be receiving something, and um, I'm going to be successful in what I'm doing, I'm going to call in more coaching clients. I'm going to call in more opportunities to share my music. I'm going to call in. I'm getting better at DJing. I am a successful coach, for example. These things are aligning myself with the universe around me, and those things are actually coming to fruition. And so it's important for anyone to really start believing in the things that you want, and don't doubt yourself, and don't say things to negate or discount the things that are possible for you, because everything is possible. To reflect back on what on Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza is he wrote an amazing book. Forgetting the name of it now, but it's about the power of your mind and belief to heal physical ailments. I think he had a like debilitating, maybe potentially life-ending illness, and he started to believe that he was healing, that he was getting healthy, he was going to get better. And despite what doctors told him, he believed that he was going to get healthy, and he did. And the book is about that, and the power of the mind to be able to attract and call in and create whatever you want in your life, because we live in a quantum world where anything is possible through the power of this alignment of energy and belief.
Beautiful. Well, let's talk about your superpower a bit.
Okay.
You see your superpower is attracting the right people. For those people who may be a little introverted, right? Who may feel a little lonely, who may definitely want to tap into this high vibration community, this energized, this energy, collective energy that you talked about all over the world.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely one of them, right? Sounds awesome, right? California, then Colorado, Bali, wherever the
Yeah.
case. Can you say a little bit more about how do you go about intentionally befriend or enter a community that resonates with you, that amplifies your collective energy?
So just to clarify that question, you're asking how do I find community? How do
Yeah,
I?
how do you find it? How did you find your community, your tribe, out
Mhm.
of, let's say, a billion other communities out there? How did you find the tribe that really resonates with you, that nourishes your soul?
Oh yeah. Um, well, for me personally, when I found myself being attracted to different things, being attracted to different energies and communities after being in a very mainstream corporate world, where I used to go to bars, I used to drink, I used to just be in spaces that weren't really um, opening me up to being a better version of myself. I soon thereafter found myself connecting with people who were interested in having conscious conversations and over non-alcoholic drinks, and to to become do more movement and heart-centered activities, and find myself in tea houses and and vegan restaurants. And it's interesting, vegan restaurants are a great place to find people that I liked, even though I'm no longer vegan. But it just it kind of attracts a certain kind of person who is a little more conscious about like what they want to do, how they live their life.
Mm,
And so and there's often places in vegan restaurants where there's something like a community message board. So for example, when I was in Bali, I didn't know where to go, so I went to like the popular vegan restaurants where a lot of people hung out, and I would just meet people there. uh,
mm.
and
See, that's
and
a hack. That's very actionable right there.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
So vegan restaurants are great, if I found them to be great. Yoga studios. I mean not
Mm,
everyone. A lot of yoga is like mainstream these days, but certain ones where there'd be events happening, like maybe like a breath work or a cacao ceremony,
mm,
um,
mm, mm,
very more
mm,
like intentional kind of activities. And I would just go and attend these events and meet people.
mm, mm,
Because I was just very curious about people, so I would just like go up and like introduce myself often in these new places. So there's an element of also just um, being curious and being open and putting myself out there. And often at these places where I would find people who are my tribe, they also found myself. They're also very much more open-hearted, to connect I found myself
Mm,
finding myself surrounded by people who are just like very sociable and
mm, mm,
and kind, and didn't have any kind of question around why I was wanting to like talk to them. So it just like naturally I found myself more and more a part of these communities, because we tracked each other.
mm. Beautiful. I love it.
And it also helped actually. So to speak about my like artistry side, and you
Mm,
mentioned this earlier, but the way I look and present myself, I think opens up the invitation for other people to just want to talk to me.
mm.
Uh,
Yes.
so I found that to be a great conversation starter, because
Mm,
I wear a lot of jewelry and I have like more unique clothing than most people. So I tend to stand out. Um, and my sense of fashion and style has allowed me to make a lot of friends.
mm. Well, I mean, that sounds like a good course. Just, planting a seed, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not the first person to have said that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's brainstorm on that for a moment, right? How to win friends and influence people. That's one of a very, very top popular, personal development book. How
Yeah.
to wear good clothes and win friends or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something right there. Just want to plant a seed with you.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
let's do a little forward looking a little bit because I know
yeah.
you also do angel investing as well, especially in the Web3 world a little bit. I'm curious to know because you had said something along the line of caring about the environment, caring about climate change. Did I recall that correctly? Is that
Uh,
something that a cause that you believe in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why I mentioned that just okay, causes typically um have, let's say, challenges or they desire more support from their supporters.
Mhm.
um, so I'm curious, forward looking a little bit on the Web3 world, is there any mechanism that you see that's able to help these communities garner support on the long-term basis?
Mm.
It's kind of like a random left field question, but that's something that I'm just curious to know if you have
Yeah.
any thoughts on that.
When you say these communities, can you be a little more specific? What do you mean by that?
Hmm. Like saving the Amazon forest as an example, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's really challenging to have modern householders care about something that's so large, or the ocean plastics, these type of like really grand causes.
Yeah.
Is there any mechanisms in your awareness that could really help um, organizations to save or buy land in the Amazon jungles, as an example, to help
Mm.
them do that better?
Um. Hmm. It's a. It's a. It's a.
Maybe this is an offline conversation. I was just curious to know if there's anything that's like, oh no, I know this magic token
I don't
that
think I don't think
happens.
there's like a silver bullet or magic pill for this. This is
Yeah,
like a kind of like deep rooted global issue that
yeah.
we all get to do our part in. I think for me personally, um, being conscious of my I don't know, like my consumption habits when it comes to plastics, for example.
Hmm.
That's really important. Always, I see you drinking from a from a metal bottle, and I have mine as well. I never use any kind of disposable plastic. Um, I will give a shout out to supporting a company a dear friend of mine has started, called Plastic Bank. Uh,
Hmm.
my friend David in Vancouver, who was on a One Heart journey with me, has started a company that creates like a whole currency system for disposable plastic, or not,
Mm.
like single use plastics you find in the ocean, to encourage individuals to collect it and then take it to a processing center so that it gets reused into other plastic objects. And he does this in
Mm.
very like underserved and kind of emerging market countries.
Mm.
And so that's I'll throw down a shout out and rep for that. And working with organizations, like basically like first personally practicing leave no trace, very
Hmm.
important. Just everyone can do that as like a practical thing. Picking up plastics on the beach whenever you go to the beach or anywhere in nature, and just like doing your part. It doesn't take that much. It doesn't take that long. Might be a small inconvenience for you, but in the long run, if everyone does that, we're going to have a much cleaner and healthier world. We have to protect
Hmm.
our earth, Pachamama.
Hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, when it comes to the Amazon and the Amazon rainforest, it's there's a lot of companies that are doing a disservice and harm to it, and it's important for us to, um, maybe it's like a little bit less practical on a day-to-day basis, but it's not like as easy as picking up trash off the beach, but we can be mindful of who we spend our money to,
Yeah.
who we spend money to, and look at the organizations that do work around that. So there's organizations where, um, like like for example at One Heart, which is the retreat I work with,
Mm.
a portion of the money that you spend to come on one of our transformational retreats goes to supporting reciprocity work with the people of the Amazon, and there are other organizations like Pachamama Alliance, where if you donate money to them, they're doing that kind of work. So there's a little bit of research involved there, but everyone can do their part to support the environment, which is really important because this is our life. This is where we live, the world we live in, and we're a part of it.
Amazing. Is there last any last thoughts that I didn't ask you that you really wanted to say? I forgot to ask you. I don't any parting words for our people?
Parting words. Yeah. So, you know, I'll say like the work that I love doing is helping people realize their best, truest, most aligned, integrous, and self-expressed selves. That is what I love. That's how I found myself in the way I am now, living completely free from expectations or judgments from others, and just doing the things that I love to do. I love to help people doing that, to do that. I do that through a variety of work I do, whether it is supporting people in their transformation through plant medicine retreats, through my work with One Heart Journeys, through my own personal work with transformational coaching or psychedelic coaching, and there is or my music, and that is how I want people to live. That is how I want everyone to be able to express themselves and live their lives without any kind of contraction or pressure from kind of any external source. And it's important to recognize that um, there's a lot of externalities that create misalignments in our lives, whether you're expecting to receive love from others, or you're getting pressure to perform or be a certain way from others. And I want everyone to know that those are outdated ways of thinking, outdated
Mm.
ways of being, and we get to give love to ourselves first and foremost. That's super important. Self-love, I think, is like number one for anyone to live a life that they truly love, um, and and to hmm, and to recognize that you may have self-limiting beliefs, you may have fears. That's normal for everyone, and those are things that get to be shifted and get to be transformed. And once you do, you'll get to experience and live a life of full integrity and alignment. And that's my wish and hope for everyone.
Beautiful. Salman, let me take a moment to really acknowledge you. More than anything else, more than your stories and the different modalities that you have taken on, I just really appreciate how you live your life, going from corporate America, Wharton MBA, to transformational artist, DJ, breathwork teacher, integration coach, all of these different ways to take care of people. Um, yeah, I have no doubt that you would be um, whatever aspiration that you want it to be. You're already doing that. So I really, really appreciate the joy, the courage, and the purposefulness that you embody. So thank you so much for sharing your story on Noble Warrior.
Thank you, CK. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it, and I loved it.
Awesome.